What if the years you spent alone weren't about being forgotten, but about being prepared? What if the silence wasn't rejection, but the space that source needed to reach you? 11 years is a long time to be single, long enough to wonder if you missed your window, long enough to question whether you'll ever stop feeling like the one nobody chose. But what if those years weren't wasted? What if they were exactly what you needed to find the one thing that changes everything? Not another relationship, but yourself. I'm Sandy Bartlett, shamanic practitioner working with midlife women who've spent their whole lives waiting for someone else to choose them. Today, we're talking about what happens when you stop waiting, when the loneliness stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like arrival. I was single for 11 years after my first marriage ended. 11 years. At first, it was by choice. Someone once asked me what I liked to do, and I couldn't answer. I had spent so long calibrating myself to other people that I didn't know who I was anymore. So I chose to be single, to find out. I bought a condo in Newport Beach. I needed to figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to be what someone else wanted. I flew to Maui for a friend's wedding. I was her maid of honor, and I went alone. And somewhere in those years, something shifted. The quiet stopped feeling like punishment. It started feeling like presence. In shamanic work, we talk about the dark night of the soul, not as depression, not as something broken, but as the space where the old self dies so the new one can be born. The waiting wasn't empty, it was gestation. Those 11 years weren't about being unwanted. They were about becoming unheld, so tightly wound around other people's approval that I couldn't hear my own voice, my own knowing, my own soul. Source doesn't show up in the noise, it shows up in the stillness. And I had to be still long enough to hear it. Have you ever had a season of waiting that felt unbearable, but looking back, you can see it was preparing you for something? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your story. I eventually bought another condo in Dana Point, this one with an ocean view. But this time, I wasn't building it for someone else. I was building it for me. I wasn't waiting to be chosen anymore. I was learning to choose myself. And that's when I started to feel it. Not God in the religious sense, but the presence, the knowing. The part of me that had always been there, waiting for me to stop running long enough to listen. The 11 years wasn't a detour. They were the path. I had to stop being available for relationships that required me to disappear. I had to stop performing a version of myself that was easier for other people to love. I had to stop waiting for external validation to tell me I was worthy. And when I finally stopped, when I finally sat down in the space I had been running from, God was already there. If you're in a season of waiting right now for love, for clarity, for the thing you've been praying for, I want you to consider this. What if the waiting isn't the problem? What if it's the preparation? What if Source is using this exact season to strip away the parts of you that aren't yours? The performance, the calibration, the shrinking, the endless monitoring of how much space you're allowed to take up. What if the thing you're waiting for can't come until you've learned to stop waiting for it? not in a manifestation way, not in a think positive and it will arrive way, but in a nervous system way, in a soul reclamation way. You can't call in what you are not vibrationally aligned with. And if you're still vibrating at the frequency of, please choose me, you'll keep attracting relationships that require you to beg. The waiting is teaching you to stop begging. What's one thing the waiting has taught you that you couldn't have learned any other way? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. I'm approaching my 70th birthday this year, 70. And when I look back at those 11 years, the years I thought were wasted, the years I spent wondering if I'd ever be chosen, I see them differently now. They were the years I found myself, the years I learned to sit in my own presence without needing someone else to validate it. The years I stopped performing and started living. The women who've done the deepest work I've seen aren't the ones who figured it all out fast. They're the ones who learned to trust the waiting, who stopped running from the silence and started listening to it. You don't need another person to complete you. You need to stop abandoning yourself long enough to realize you were never incomplete. If you're in a season of waiting and you're realizing that the thing you're really waiting for is permission to stop performing, this is soul retrieval work. There's a part of you that's been waiting her whole life to be chosen, and she's ready to come home. I offer one-to-one shamanic sessions for women who are ready to call themselves back. If that's where you are, the link to book a session is in the description. The waiting wasn't wasted. It was sacred. And when you're ready to see that, everything changes. I'll see you next time.